Have you ever walked into a house where an 82-year-old man lives alone and thought something was wrong? Not broken, not neglected, just missing. A one-story wooden house on a quiet lane in Matsuyama, Japan. You step inside, slip off your shoes, and the hallway is narrow and bare. The kitchen counter holds a teapot, a knife, and nothing else. The living room has no couch, just a low table, a floor cushion, and a window letting in the afternoon light. No recliner, no microwave, no pill organizer, no frozen dinners, no television the size of a wall. And the man who lives here moves through it all like water. He kneels at the table, pours his tea, stands back up. His hands grip the edge of the wood for half a second, and then he's on his feet. 82. Most people assume Japanese longevity comes down to what they eat. The fish, the rice, the green tea. But this house tells a different story. What keeps this man moving has less to do with what's in his kitchen, and more to do with what was never in his living room. Japan has more people over 100 than any other country on Earth. Over 90,000. And when you look at how they live, the pattern isn't addition, it's absence. The things they never added are the things that kept their bodies working. This video is about 7 of those missing things. Not supplements, not gadgets, not secrets. Just ordinary objects that never showed up, and the quiet reasons they didn't. You already own most of them. And by the end of this, you might look at 1 or 2 of them differently. Starting with the one you're probably sitting in right now. 1. The recliner. The most comfortable way to forget how to stand up. Mid-afternoon in a house in Kyoto. A woman in her late 70s kneels at a low table to sort through her mail. She finishes, puts her hands on her thighs, and stands. No armrest, no lever, no rocking forward 3 times to build momentum. Just up, she'll do this maybe 15 times before dinner. Now picture your living room. The recliner. Padded armrests, a footrest that kicks up, a back that tilts until you're almost horizontal. It's the most popular chair in America for people over 60, and it does something no one puts on the label. It removes every reason your legs have to work. You don't lower yourself down, you fall into it. You don't stand up, you push off the arms and hope for the best. 5 years in a recliner, and the muscles that lift you off the floor start to forget what they're for. In most Japanese homes, there is no recliner because there's no reason for one. The floor is the chair, the cushion is the seat, and every time you sit down and stand back up, your knees, your hips, your core do a small piece of work they were built to do. Nobody counts reps, nobody tracks sets. The house itself is the gym, and the floor is the trainer. They don't build stronger legs. They just never gave their legs permission to quit. 2. The microwave. And the kitchen ritual it replaced. So what does a kitchen look like when there's no shortcut sitting on the counter? Step into a small apartment in Okinawa. 7 in the evening. A woman in her 90s stands at a 2-burner stove, stirring a pot of miso. A single piece of fish grills under a low flame. 3 small dishes already sit on the counter. Pickled radish, steamed greens, a square of tofu with ginger. The rice cooker clicks off. 20 minutes of cooking. 4 plates, not one of them came from a box. When was the last time you cooked something that used all 4 burners, or even 2? Most American kitchens have a microwave bolted above the stove, and it handles half the meals that come through the door. Frozen entree in, 3 minutes, done. And something disappears with the beep. Not nutrition, exactly. Routine. The act of standing in a kitchen, handling a knife, stirring something, watching it change. Those 20 minutes at the stove are 20 minutes on your feet. Hands moving, mind tracking 4 things at once. Take that away, and you've removed a piece of daily life the body was quietly depending on. Here's the thing worth remembering. She doesn't cook because she's disciplined. She cooks because the kitchen was never set up to let her stop. So what happens after the meal is finished and the dishes are washed? Where does she sit? 3. The oversized television. And the conversation it swallowed. A farmhouse in rural Nagano, just after dinner. A couple in their mid-80s sit across from each other at a low table, teacups between them. A small television sits against the far wall, maybe 20 inches, screen dark. Nobody turned it on. They're talking about the neighbor's persimmon tree, about whether the grandchildren are coming Saturday, about nothing in particular, which turns out to be something after all. Walk into most American living rooms and the television tells you where to sit, where to look, and what to do with your evening. 65 inches, surround sound, a recliner aimed straight at it. The average American over 65 watches more than 4 hours of television a day. 4 hours of sitting still, eyes forward, nobody talking. In most Japanese homes, the television is small, off to the side. The room is arranged for people, not for screens. The low table faces the window or the garden, not the wall. And when someone visits, the conversation has somewhere to go. Japan's centenarians, when researchers ask what keeps them sharp, almost never mention puzzles or brain games. They talk about their neighbors, their friends, the 5 people they've been meeting once a month since 1974 talking. It turns out, exercise is something no screen ever will. 4. The pill organizer, and the counter it never cluttered. Here's a number. The average American over 65 takes 4 or more prescription medications every day. Walk into the kitchen and there it is. The plastic pill organizer. 7 compartments, morning and night, lined up beside the coffee maker like a second calendar. It becomes part of the furniture, part of the routine, part of the identity. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Blue ones, white ones. The little round one you can never remember the name of. Now walk back into that house in Masuyama. The counter where you'd expect to see one holds a teapot and a small jar of pickled plums. That's it. The man of 82 doesn't keep a pill organizer because he doesn't organize his day around pills. His day is organized around movement, food, a bath, and sleep. And those 4 things do a kind of work that no plastic compartment ever could. This isn't a knock on medicine. Some people need every pill in that box, and no habit replaces what a doctor prescribes. But here's what the empty counter says. When the daily routine itself is the maintenance, the counter stays clear, not because the body is perfect, because the life is doing the labor before the pills have to. So far, every missing item lives in the kitchen or the living room. The next 3 are different. They're hiding in the freezer, the bathroom, and the bedroom. And the last one might be the most surprising of all. 5. The stack of frozen dinners, and the wok that replaced them. Noon in Naha, Okinawa. A retired fisherman in his late 70s walks home from the open market with 2 canvas bags, 1 in each hand. Tofu. A bunch of greens, a small piece of pork, 3 different kinds of seaweed. He walks this route 5 days a week, about 20 minutes each way, and he's done it so long the vendors know his name and pack his order before he arrives. Open the freezer in an average American kitchen and count. Frozen lasagna, frozen pot pie, a bag of something breaded. Stacked 3 deep, enough for a week. The freezer is the meal plan, and the car is the supply chain. Drive to the store once a week. Load the trunk, load the freezer, and the kitchen barely needs to turn on. That fisherman's freezer is nearly empty. Not because he's poor, because the food comes home fresh, in his hands, on his feet, every day. The walk is the errand is the exercise, the bags are the grip strength, the market is the social hour, and the meal at the end of it tastes like something he chose that morning, not something he thawed. You don't need a market in walking distance, but you might notice what disappeared from your day when the freezer got full. 6. The grab bar, and the floor it arrives too late to save. This is the one nobody wants to hear, but stay with me. Walk into the bathroom of almost any American home where someone over 70 lives, and you'll find them. Grab bars, bolted beside the toilet, screwed into the shower wall, sometimes a plastic seat in the tub. They arrive one at a time, after a fall, after a scare, after the doctor says, "At your age, you need to be careful." And once they go in, they almost never come out. The body learns to lean on them. The legs, already weakening, get the signal that someone else is handling the load now. The bar isn't a safety feature. It's a monument to the moment the floor was surrendered. In most traditional Japanese homes, the bathroom has no grab bar, not because they don't care about safety, because the body that uses that bathroom has been getting on and off the floor for 80 years. Every meal on the tatami, every night on the futon, every bath in the deep Ofu row, where you lower yourself into chest-high water and climb back out, wet and warm, gripping nothing but the edge of the tub. The legs that do this every day at 30 still do it at 80, not because they're extraordinary, because they were never told to stop. Remember the man in Masuyama? His hands gripping the edge of the low table, just for half a second, before he stood? That's not weakness. That's what 80 years of floor sitting built. The table is the only bar he ever needed. When was the last time you lowered yourself all the way to the floor and stood back up without holding on to anything? 7. The big, soft, elevated bed, and the morning it erased. Dawn, a tatami room in Osaka. A woman in her mid-80s pushes back a light quilt, rolls to her side, presses both hands into the floor, and rises from her futon. She folds the bedding into thirds, stacks it in the closet, and the bedroom becomes the living room again. The floor she slept on is now the floor she'll stretch on, kneel on, sit on for the rest of the day. The whole act takes 2 minutes, and inside those 2 minutes live a dozen movements the body needs. Rolling, pressing, rising, bending, lifting, carrying, reaching, balancing. Now picture your own morning. The alarm goes off. You swing your legs over the side of a mattress that sits 2.5 feet off the ground. You stand up, and the bed stays exactly where it was, taking up half the room. You didn't fold anything. You didn't carry anything. You didn't get off the floor because you were never on it. The first physical act of your day was a controlled fall from a soft ledge. A futon on the floor is not a punishment. It's a deal the body makes with the morning. Every day begins with the act of rising. Not from a height, from the ground. And the body that does this at 20 still knows how to do it at 85 because it never got a 2.5-foot head start. The bed isn't the problem. The problem is what the body forgets when it never has to work for the first minute of the day. 7 missing things. No recliner, no microwave, no oversized screen, no pill organizer, no frozen dinners, no grab bar, no high soft bed. Not one of them was removed on purpose. They just never arrived. And in their absence, something else stayed. Legs that lower and rise, hands that grip and stir, knees that bend, a back that straightens, a morning that begins with movement instead of falling off a ledge. The man in Masuyama didn't design his house this way. He just never redesigned it. The floor stayed the floor, the stove stayed the stove, the bath stayed deep, and his body, at 82, still does what it did at 40, because nothing in his home ever told it to stop. And here's the quiet part. You don't have to throw anything away. You don't need to move to Japan or sleep on the floor tonight, or toss your microwave out the window. But you might walk through your house this evening with slightly different eyes. Look at the recliner. Look at the freezer. Look at the chair beside your bed. Ask yourself what each one replaced, not what it gave you, what it took over, and whether your body misses doing the job. Walk through your own home tonight. Which one object would you take a break from first? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If this made you think of someone who might see their house a little differently, send it to them. And if it was worth your time, that like button tells me to keep making more of these. Next time, we're stepping inside a Japanese kitchen at 6 in the morning to see what breakfast actually looks like in the longest-lived country on Earth. Subscribe, and that one will find you. The house in Masuyama is quiet now. The afternoon light has shifted. The man is in his garden, pulling weeds between rows of daikon, knees in the soil, hands in the dark earth. 82. And nothing in his home ever asked him to sit down and stay there.